The Deep Space Monitoring Station hung silent in the darkness beyond Pluto. Inside, Officer Dan Miller stared at his screen, fighting to stay awake during the final hour of his 12-hour shift. The station was one of 20 such outposts that humans had built to watch the stars. Most days nothing happened. Today was different. A soft beep pulled Dan from his half-sleep. He blinked, focusing on the display where a pattern repeated. It was faint, barely there, but it was regular. Too regular to be natural. "Hey Mike," Dan called to his station partner. "Come look at this." Mike floated across the room, pushing himself along the handrails. In the low gravity, his movements were smooth and practiced. "What is it?" "Don't know, but it's not random." The pattern continued. 3 short pulses, 3 long, 3 short again. Then silence. Then it repeated. "Recording it?" Mike asked. Dan nodded. "Started capture the moment it hit our systems. Should we alert Earth Command?" Mike studied the pattern. After 15 years in deep space monitoring, he had developed good instincts. "Yeah, this one feels different." Admiral Jack Reynolds was having breakfast when the call came in. He was 55 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face marked by years of hard decisions. He had fought in the Mars insurrection and led the fleet during the Europa campaign. Now he commanded Earth's outer defense ring, which mostly meant pushing paper and attending meetings. "Admiral," his aide said, appearing on the screen above his dining table, "Deep Space Station 17 is reporting an unusual signal. They've forwarded the data for immediate review." Reynolds put down his coffee. "Send it through." The signal appeared on his screen, a simple pattern repeating. Earth scientists had been sending similar patterns into space for over 200 years. This was the first time something had come back. "Get me the science division," Reynolds ordered, "and inform the council. We need to know what this is." 3 days passed. Earth's best minds worked non-stop to understand the signal. It carried more than just a pattern. Buried within it was a complex message that their computers struggled to decode. Dr. Lisa Brown had not slept in those 3 days. As head of Earth's Xenolinguistics division, she led the team trying to make sense of the message. When she finally walked into the council chamber, dark circles underlined her eyes. "It's a distress call," she announced to the 12 council members seated around the circular table. Admiral Reynolds sat among them. "We're certain of that much." President Maya Thompson leaned forward. She was a tall woman with dark skin and commanding presence. "From whom? And what do they want?" "The message comes from a species that calls itself the Valni," Dr. Brown explained. "They've sent this message in over 50 different communication formats, hoping someone would understand, at least one. Luckily, one format was close to our mathematics-based communication attempts." She touched a control and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed a star system with 8 planets. One planet glowed red. "This is their home. They are under attack by another species called the Drax. From what we can determine, the Drax are systematically destroying Valni cities and hunting their people. It's genocide." The room fell silent. Humans knew this word too well from their own bloody history. "Why us?" asked Counselor James Park. "Surely there are closer civilizations that could help them." Dr. Brown shook her head. "The message wasn't directed specifically at us. They sent it everywhere, to anyone who might listen. We just happened to hear it." "How far away are they?" Reynolds asked. "About 70 light years. With our newest Hawking drives, we could reach them in 3 months." President Thompson looked around the table. "The question before us is simple but enormous. Do we answer this call? Do we involve ourselves in a war between alien species we know nothing about?" Counselor Helen Martinez frowned. "We barely have enough ships to defend our own system. We can't afford to send help." "We can't afford not to," countered Counselor Raj Patel. "If we ignore this, what does it say about us? We've overcome war among ourselves. We've survived our death world environment. Perhaps this is why, so we could help others." The debate continued. For hours. Some argued for caution, others for immediate action. As the council argued, Admiral Reynolds sat quietly, thinking about the implications. Finally, President Thompson called for a vote. Those in favor of sending aid to the Valny, raise your hands. 7 hands went up. Those opposed, 5 hands rose. In response, Thompson nodded. Then it's decided. We will answer the call. Admiral Reynolds, what would it take to mount a rescue mission? Reynolds stood. He had been preparing for this question. A rescue mission wouldn't be enough, Madam President. The Valny are facing extinction. They need more than rescue, they need protection. He touched the control panel, and the hologram changed to show Earth's fleet. 27 warships, 3 carrier vessels, and 1 massive dreadnought, the Nemesis. I recommend we send Fleet Doom. Several counselors gasped. Fleet Doom was Earth's primary defense force, the most powerful military assembly humans had ever created. You're suggesting we send our entire defense fleet? Martinez asked, shocked. Not the planetary defense ships, those stay here. But the deep space fleet, yes, all of it. Reynolds looked at each counselor in turn. The Valny sent out a desperate plea for help. If we're going to answer, we should answer with everything we have. President Thompson considered this. How many volunteer soldiers would we need? 15,000 Marines minimum, all volunteers. Will they volunteer? Asked Counselor Park. They'd be going to face an unknown enemy, 70 light years from home. Reynolds smiled slightly. They're Marines, Counselor, they'll volunteer. Thompson stood. Her decision was made. Admiral Reynolds, you have your orders. Prepare fleet. Doom for immediate departure. We will answer the Valny call. As the council session ended, Reynolds walked through the grand halls of Earth Government headquarters in Geneva. Through the windows, he could see the city below. Peaceful, prosperous. Humans had fought long and hard to achieve this peace. Now, they would fight for someone else's. His comm unit beeped. It was Captain Tom Ford, commander of the Nemesis. Is it true, sir? Ford asked. Are we really going? It's true, Captain. Prepare the Nemesis. We leave in 7 days. Yes, sir. Ford paused. Sir, do you think we're doing the right thing? Getting involved in someone else's war? Reynolds looked out at the blue sky above Earth, the sky of a world that had tried to kill humans countless times through history. Storms, earthquakes, diseases, predators. Earth had thrown everything at humanity, and humanity had survived. I don't know if it's right, Captain, but I know it's human. 7 days later, Fleet Doom assembled in Earth orbit. The massive ships gleamed in the sunlight, weapon systems primed, engines ready. 15,000 Marines had volunteered, more than were needed. Each one knew they might never return. As the fleet prepared to activate their hawking drives, Admiral Reynolds sent one final message to the Valny. Though they wouldn't receive it for 70 years, it felt important to send it anyway. The message was simple. We heard you, we're coming, hold on. In a flash of blue light, Fleet Doom vanished from Earth's orbit, beginning the longest journey humans had ever attempted. The Deathworlders were on their way. Captain Tom Ford stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, the largest ship ever built by human hands. At 35, he was young for a captain, but his record in the Europa campaign had earned him this command. He watched as the final preparations were made for the longest journey any human had ever attempted. Status report, he ordered. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Ana Diaz, checked her screens. All systems green, Captain. The other ships report ready. We're just waiting for the final loading of supplies. Ford nodded. The Nemesis was massive, 2 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. Its main gun could punch a hole through a small moon, but more important than its weapons were its engines. The new hawking drives were untested for jumps this long. Any word from Admiral Reynolds? Ford asked. He's completing the final briefing with the Marine commanders. He'll be aboard within the hour. Ford looked out the view screen at Earth below. He wondered if he would ever see it again. Deep within the Nemesis, 5,000 Marines prepared for war. They trained in special rooms where the gravity could be adjusted to simulate different worlds. No one knew what gravity the Valny homeworld had, or what conditions they would face when they arrived. Major Will Cooper watched his troops train. They wore the newest combat exosuits, powered armor designed to enhance human strength and speed. On Earth, with its crushing gravity, the suits made a soldier 3 times stronger. On a world with lower gravity, they would be nearly unstoppable. "Listen up," Cooper called to his squad leaders. "We don't know what we're flying into. We don't know what these Dracs look like or how they fight. But we know this: we're humans. We evolved on the most dangerous planet known to any species. Our bones are dense, our muscles are strong, and our minds are sharp. Whatever we face out there, remember that." The Marines cheered. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return. Each one had their reasons. Some sought adventure. Others wanted to test themselves against an alien foe. Most simply believed it was the right thing to do. Cooper dismissed them to continue preparations. He checked his own exosuit one more time, making sure every system worked perfectly. In 3 months, their lives would depend on this equipment. "Admiral," Reynolds arrived on the Nemesis with little fanfare. He went straight to the bridge where Captain Ford waited. "Captain," Reynolds said, offering his hand, "is she ready?" Ford nodded. "As ready as she'll ever be, sir. All 27 warships report ready. The 3 carriers have their fighter craft secured. The Marines are aboard and training." "Good. We leave in 3 hours." Ford hesitated. "Sir, there's something I need to ask." "Go ahead, Captain. Do we know anything more about these Dracs? What kind of weapons they have? What their ships are like?" Reynolds shook his head. "Almost nothing. From what little we could decode from the Valny message, the Dracs are predatory by nature. They've conquered multiple systems. The Valny are just their latest target, so we're flying blind. Not entirely blind. We know they can be fought. The Valny have held out this long." Reynolds put a hand on Ford's shoulder. "I chose you for this mission because you can think on your feet, Captain. When we get there, we'll assess the situation and adapt." Ford straightened. "Yes, sir. We won't let you down." 2 hours before departure, President Thompson addressed the crews of all 31 ships from Earth. Her face appeared on screens throughout the fleet. "Men and women of Fleet Doom," she began. "You are about to embark on the most important mission in human history. For the first time, we reach out beyond our solar system not to explore, but to protect. The Valny do not know us. They have never seen a human. Yet their cry for help has moved us to action." She paused, her expression solemn. "You carry with you not just the hopes of Earth, but the hopes of an entire species fighting for survival. Remember that we send you not just to fight, but to save. Show the galaxy what humanity stands for. Show them that the people of Earth will not stand by while innocents are slaughtered." The crews throughout the fleet listened in silence. "Return to us if you can," President Thompson finished. "But above all, make Earth proud. Godspeed, Fleet Doom." As the final hour approached, Lieutenant Diaz worked at her station, making last-minute checks of all systems. "Nervous?" Ford asked, coming to stand beside her. She looked up. "A little, aren't you?" Ford smiled slightly. "Terrified, but also excited. We're about to make history. If the drives work, they'll work." Admiral Reynolds entered the bridge. "It's time, Captain. Give the order." Ford nodded and opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. "This is Captain Ford. Prepare for Hawking Drive activation. On my mark, 3, 2, 1, engage." Throughout the fleet, engineers activated the experimental drives. The massive engines hummed to life, bending space around each ship. The theory was simple. Instead of traveling through space, they would fold space itself, creating a shortcut to their destination. In practice, no one had attempted a jump this long. Outside the ships, space began to ripple. Blue light surrounded each vessel as the fabric of reality distorted. On the Nemesis bridge, Ford gripped his chair tightly. "All ships reporting drive activation, sir." Reynolds nodded. "Take us out, Captain." Ford gave the final command. "All ships complete jump sequence." The ripples of blue light intensified. Stars seemed to stretch into lines. Then, with a flash that briefly outshone the sun, Fleet Doom vanished from Earth's orbit. The journey had begun, but living aboard a warship for 3 months would not be easy. The ships were designed for battle, not comfort. Space was tight, privacy limited. The crews settled into routines, keeping busy with drills and training. In the Nemesis mess hall, Major Cooper sat with a group of his Marines, eating the standard military rations. "What do you think they look like?" asked Private Joe Hart, a young Marine on his first deployment. "The Valny, I mean." Cooper shrugged. "No idea. Could have tentacles, could have 6 arms, could look like dogs for all we know." "I bet they're small," said Sergeant Pat Lee. "Most aliens would be coming from lower gravity worlds." "And the Drax?" another Marine asked. "What about them?" "They're the bad guys," Cooper said simply. "That's all we need to know for now." As the Marines continued their meal, Captain Ford's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Attention all personnel. We have successfully completed the first stage of our journey. The Hawking drives performed exactly as designed. We are now 1/3 of the way to the Valny system. Drive recharge will take 24 hours before our next jump. Well done, everyone." A cheer went up throughout the ship. The first test had been passed. The experimental drives worked, but somewhere 70 light-years away, the Valny fought for survival, not knowing if their desperate call had been heard, not knowing that Fleet Doom was on its way, and the Drax continued their hunt, unaware that they themselves were about to become prey. After 3 months of travel through folded space, Fleet Doom prepared for its final jump. The crews were tense with anticipation. They had trained constantly during the journey, but no amount of training could prepare them for what lay ahead: humanity's first interstellar war. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Captain Ford reviewed the final jump coordinates. "All ships report ready, sir," Lieutenant Diaz informed him. "Hawking drives charged to full capacity." Admiral Reynolds stood by the main view screen, hands clasped behind his back. "Remember, Captain, we don't know what we'll find when we arrive. The Valny message is 70 years old. We could be jumping into an empty system if they've already been wiped out." Ford nodded grimly. "Or right into the middle of a Drax fleet. Either way, we're ready." Reynolds turned to face the bridge crew. "Sound battle stations throughout the fleet. All hands to combat positions. We jump in 5 minutes." Alarm klaxons blared throughout the 31 ships of Fleet Doom. Marines rushed to their drop pods, fighter pilots climbed into their craft, gunners manned their stations. Medical teams prepared for casualties. In his drop pod, Major Cooper sealed his exosuit and ran final checks. The pod was designed to launch from the Nemesis and pierce through the hull of an enemy ship, or enter a planet's atmosphere and land with precision. Inside his advanced armor, Cooper was a one-man army. "All Marines, sound off," he ordered over the comm. One by one, his 5,000 troops confirmed their readiness. They were the best Earth had to offer, veterans of the Mars insurrection and the Europa campaign, now about to face an enemy no human had ever seen. "Remember your training," Cooper told them. "Whatever they look like, whatever weapons they have, you are humans. You were born on a death world. You are stronger and faster than they expect. Make them fear that strength." On the bridge, Ford opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, prepare for final jump. May fortune favor the bold." He gave the command, and for the 3rd time the Hawking drives activated. Space folded around Fleet Doom. The ships vanished in a cascade of blue light, and then they arrived. The Valny system burst into view on the Nemesis's sensors. 8 planets orbited a yellow star. The 3rd planet, the Valny homeworld, glowed, blue-green in the distance, and surrounding that planet was the Drax blockade. 40 enemy vessels detected, reported the sensor officer. Most are in orbit around the 3rd planet. "They've spotted us, sir. They're moving to intercept." "Put it on screen," Reynolds ordered. The view screen showed the Drax ships, sleek, predatory vessels with forward-swept wings like ancient Earth raptors. They moved with surprising speed, breaking their blockade to form an attack formation. "They outnumber us," Diaz observed quietly. "Numbers aren't everything," Ford replied. "Open a channel. Let's see if they're willing to talk before we fight." After a moment, the view screen changed to show the Drax commander. The alien was reptilian with scales the color of burnt copper and vertical pupils and yellow eyes. A ridge of spines ran from the top of its head down its neck, flaring with obvious aggression. Unknown vessels. The Drax commander hissed, its words translated by the ship's computer. You have entered territory claimed by the Drax Imperium. Identify yourselves or be destroyed. Ford stepped forward. This is Captain Tom Ford of the Earth vessel Nemesis. We are here in response to a distress call from the Valny people. We demand you cease your assault on their world immediately. The Drax commander's spines flattened, then rose again, a gesture of surprise, perhaps, or amusement. Earth? I know of no such world. The alien leaned closer to whatever device was transmitting its image. Your vessels are impressive, but you have no standing in this region. The Valny are our prey by right of strength. Leave now, and we will not add your species to our hunting grounds. Admiral Reynolds joined Ford in the viewscreen's field. We are not asking. We are telling. Withdraw your forces from this system, or we will remove them. The Drax commander's mouth opened, revealing rows of sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. You are either very brave or very foolish. We outnumber you. We have conquered 17 systems. Who are you to challenge the Drax? We are humans, Reynolds said simply. We come from Earth, a world your kind would fear to set foot upon, a world that forged us through fire and pain. We are Deathworlders, and we have answered the Valny call. The Drax commander hissed again. Then you will die with them. The transmission cut off. They're launching attack vessels, the sensor officer reported. Hundreds of them, small craft, fighter-sized. Reynolds turned to Ford. Well, Captain, diplomacy has failed. The choice is yours. How do we respond? Ford didn't hesitate. Launch our fighters to engage their small craft. Prepare the main fleet to break through their blockade. He paused, then added, and have Major Cooper prepare the Marines for boarding actions. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Boarding? That's risky. They expect us to fight ship to ship. They don't know what humans are capable of. Let's show them. Reynolds nodded. Make it so. The first battle between humans and Drax began with a dance of fighter craft. The human pilots, used to the crushing G-forces of Earth training, moved with incredible speed and precision. Their neural reflexes, evolved for a predator species, allowed them to outmaneuver the Drax fighters despite being outnumbered. From the bridge of the Nemesis, Ford watched the tactical display as the human fighters tore through the Drax formations. They're good, Diaz said, watching the same display. But there are too many of them. They're a distraction, Ford replied. The real attack is about to begin. He opened a channel to Major Cooper. Major, you have a green light. Launch when? Ready? In the Nemesis's massive launch bay, Cooper gave the order. All Marines prepare for drop. Target the largest Drax vessels first. Capture if possible, destroy if necessary. 5,000 drop pods launched from the human ships, streaking toward the Drax fleet like a meteor shower. The Drax, focused on the fighter battle, didn't react until it was too late. The pods slammed into the hulls of the Drax ships, powerful drills cutting through metal and composite materials. From each pod emerged a single Marine in a powered exosuit, armed with weapons designed to fight in the harshest environments of the solar system. Cooper's pod hit the hull of what sensors identified as the Drax flagship. His drill burned through, and he emerged into an alien corridor. 2 Drax soldiers stood before him, weapons raised. They fired, energy weapons of some kind, but the shots barely scuffed Cooper's armor. The Drax soldiers froze in surprise. They clearly expected their weapons to be effective. Cooper didn't give them time to try again. He moved with speed that would have been impossible on Earth but was enhanced in the lower gravity of the Drax ship. His armored fist struck the first alien with enough force to send it flying into a wall. The second tried to flee, but Cooper's boot caught it in the back, slamming it to the floor. Throughout the Drax fleet, similar scenes played out as human Marines demonstrated what it meant to be born on a death world. On the Nemesis bridge, reports flooded in. Sir, Diaz said, amazement in her voice. The Marines have secured control of 7 Drax vessels already. 3 more are reporting heavy fighting. The Drax. They can't stop them. Ford nodded. And now they know what they're facing. On his tactical display, he could see the Drax fleet beginning to break formation. Several ships were already turning, attempting to flee. For the first time in their history, the Drax had met a species they couldn't hunt. They had met the Deathworlders. The battle for the Valny system ended faster than anyone expected. Within 6 hours, 17 Drax vessels had been captured or destroyed. The remaining Drax ships retreated to the system's edge, regrouping but not leaving completely. On the Yei bridge of the Nemesis, Captain Ford studied the tactical displays with Admiral Reynolds. "They're not running," Ford observed. "They're waiting for something." "Reinforcements, most likely," Reynolds replied. "We've won the first battle, but the war isn't over." He turned to Lieutenant Diaz. "What's the status of the Valny planet?" Diaz checked her screens. "We're picking up millions of life signs, sir, but also massive destruction. Many of their cities appear to be heavily damaged. There are large fires visible from orbit," Reynolds nodded grimly. "Open a channel to the planet. Let's see if anyone down there can still answer." After several minutes of trying different frequencies, the communications officer called out, "Sir, we have a response. Audio only at first, but they're switching to visual." The main view screen flickered, then showed the face of a Valny. The alien was slender, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Its face was narrow, with no visible nose, just 2 small breathing slits. It had no hair, but a series of ridge-like structures on its head that seemed to pulse with light. "Unknown vessels," the Valny said in a musical voice that the ship's computer translated. "You have driven back the Drax. Who are you?" Reynolds stepped forward. "I am Admiral Jack Reynolds of Earth. We received your distress call and have come to help." The Valny's head ridges flashed with bright pulses. "Earth? We know of no such world. Our call was sent to all corners of the galaxy, but we received no answer. That was many cycles ago. 70 of your years, approximately." Reynolds said, "We came as soon as we detected your signal. We're sorry we couldn't arrive sooner." The Valny seemed to tremble. "You came across the stars for us, for strangers, why?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Reynolds said simply. "We'd like to send teams to your surface to help with medical aid and repairs if you'll allow it." The Valny was silent for a moment, its ridges pulsing with changing colors. Yes, of course, I am Elder Ron, one of the few remaining leaders of our people. I will send landing coordinates for your vessels." As the transmission ended, Ford turned to Reynolds. "I'll organize the landing parties. We should send medical teams first, then engineers to help with infrastructure." Reynolds nodded. "And Major Cooper's Marines for security. The Drax may be regrouping, but they could still have forces on the planet." 2 hours later, the first human shuttles entered the Valny atmosphere. Major Cooper led the security team, his Marines still in their exosuits, but with weapons set to non-lethal modes. They didn't expect to fight on the planet, but after decades of war, the Valny might be frightened of armed strangers. The shuttles landed in what had once been a grand plaza in the Valny capital city. Now it was a broken space surrounded by half-collapsed crystal structures. The beauty of the alien architecture was still visible despite the destruction. Cooper was the first human to set foot on the Valny world. He stepped out of the shuttle and immediately noticed the difference. The gravity here was only about 70% of Earth's. Even in his heavy exosuit, he felt light, almost buoyant. "Secure the landing zone," he ordered his troops. "But remember, we're guests here. These people have suffered enough without us frightening them further." The Marines spread out, establishing a perimeter while the medical teams and engineers unloaded their equipment. Soon a group of Valny approached, led by Elder Ron. In person, the Valny were taller than they appeared on the view screen, the average adult standing about 2 meters in height. They were graceful despite their slender builds, moving with elegant precision in the low gravity of their world. Elder Ron approached Cooper. "You are the first visitors from beyond our star system that we have ever met in person," the Elder said. "We had theories that other intelligent life existed, but the Drax were our only confirmation, and they brought only death." Cooper removed his helmet so the Valny could see his face. Several of the aliens gasped, their head ridges flashing with pulses of light that Cooper guessed expressed surprise. "You are so solid," Ron said, studying Cooper's face. "Your features are so dense." Cooper smiled slightly. "Humans evolved on a world with much stronger gravity than yours. Our bodies are built differently because of it." Ron's head ridges pulsed with a new pattern. "You are the Death Worlders. The legends speak of planets where life exists in constant struggle, where even the air can kill. We thought such stories were exaggerations." "They're not," Cooper replied. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world by galactic standards. Most species would find it impossible to survive there. But it's home to us." The Valny elder seemed to consider this. "Perhaps that is why you were able to defeat the Drax so easily. They have never faced beings from such a world before." Before Cooper could respond, a human medical officer approached. "Major, we've set up the field hospital and are ready to begin treating wounded Valny." Cooper nodded. "Elder Ron, our doctors would like to help your injured people. They've studied your physiology from the data in your distress message, but they'll need guidance from your own healers." Ron's head ridges glowed with a soft blue light. "Of course. I will summon our remaining medical practitioners. But I must warn you, the Drax have been methodical in their destruction. They targeted our hospitals and healing centers first. Many of our sick and injured have had no care for days." "Show us where to start," Cooper said. "We'll do everything we can." Over the next few hours, humans spread throughout the Valny capital. Medical teams treated the injured. Engineers began repairs on critical power systems. Marines secured the perimeter against possible Drax forces still on the planet. In what remained of the Valny Central Government building, Admiral Reynolds and Captain Ford met with the surviving Valny leaders. Elder Ron explained their situation. "The Drax appeared in our system 5 years ago," Ron said, manipulating a holographic display to show the history. "At first, they claimed to be peaceful explorers. We welcomed them. Then their warships arrived. The hologram showed Drax vessels surrounding the Valny world. They gave us a simple choice: surrender to become their slaves and food source, or be exterminated. We refused to surrender, and so the hunting began." Ford frowned. "Food source?" "The Drax are predators," Ron explained. "They consume other intelligent species, believing it gives them strength. They have done this across many systems, hunting one species after another to extinction." Reynolds studied the hologram. "How have you held out this long?" "We had defensive systems, not many, as we were a peaceful people, but enough to prevent them from simply bombing our world into dust. They had to land and hunt us directly." Ron's head ridges dimmed. "Millions have died. Our civilization is in ruins. Without your arrival, I believe we had perhaps one more month before complete extinction." Reynolds placed a hand on the alien elder's shoulder. "That won't happen now. We're here, and we're going to help you rebuild." "But the Drax will return," Ron said. "They always do. They have conquered 17 systems before ours. They never abandon a hunt." Ford and Reynolds exchanged glances. "Then we'll be ready for them," Ford said, "because humans never abandon those under their protection." As the meeting continued, Major Cooper received an urgent message from the Nemesis. "Sir," came Lieutenant Diaz's voice, "our long-range sensors have detected new Hawking-like distortions at the edge of the system. The Drax reinforcements are coming, and there are a lot of them." Cooper looked up at the alien sky, where the first stars were becoming visible as night fell. Somewhere up there, a new threat was gathering. The real test of humanity's resolve was about to begin. The Drax returned with a vengeance. 3 days after the first battle, their reinforcements arrived, 120 vessels, including their feared planet killer, the Ravager. The massive ship was 3 times the size of the Nemesis, with a main weapon designed to crack a planet's crust. On the bridge of the Nemesis, now in orbit around the Valny homeworld, Captain Ford watched the enemy fleet approach on the tactical display. "They've brought everything they have," Lieutenant Diaz said quietly. Admiral Reynolds studied the display with a calm expression. "They think numbers will save them. They still don't understand what they're facing. Ford turned to him. Sir, we're outnumbered 4-1. And that planet killer, our simulations show it could destroy the Valny world with 3 direct hits. Then we make sure it doesn't get those hits. Reynolds accessed the ship's communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Reynolds. The Drax have returned as expected. They believe their superior numbers will guarantee victory. They are wrong. He paused, looking at the officers on the bridge. Throughout human history, warfare has been a constant. We have fought each other, our environment, and our own nature. Every weapon, every tactic the Drax might use, we invented and countered centuries ago. Today, we will show them what it means to face the people of Earth. Reynolds nodded to Ford. Captain, deploy the Nova Protocol. Ford hesitated for just a moment. Sir, are you certain? We've never used it outside of testing. I'm certain. The Council approved its use in extreme circumstances. I'd say this qualifies. Ford nodded and entered his authorization code. Nova Protocol activated, targeting the enemy's forward vessels. Deep within the Nemesis, a special weapon powered up, a series of quantum devices that could destabilize the fabric of space-time itself within a limited radius. The weapon had been deemed too dangerous to use in Earth's solar system. But here, against an enemy intent on genocide, all constraints were removed. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Nova Protocol deployed. The space between the human and Drax fleets rippled strangely like heat rising from hot pavement. There was no beam, no projectile, just a distortion that spread from the Nemesis toward 30 of the leading Drax vessels. The fabric of reality around those ships began to fold and twist. The Drax captains attempted evasive maneuvers, but it was already too late. Space itself collapsed around their vessels, compressing them into points of incredible density before they winked out of existence. 30 ships simply gone in an instant. The remaining Drax fleet froze in confusion. Before they could react, Ford gave his next order. Launch all fighters, target their command vessels. From the 3 carrier ships, hundreds of human fighters streamed toward the Drax fleet. The pilots, products of a species that had evolved to process information at incredible speeds, moved and thought faster than the Drax gunners could track. On the Valny surface, Major Cooper watched the battle unfolding in the sky above. Next, to him Elder Ron stared upward in astonishment. What was that? The Valny leader asked. Those ships just vanished. Cooper smiled grimly. That was the Nova Protocol, a weapon we developed but hoped never to use. Your people created a weapon that can remove objects from existence? Ron's head ridges flashed with pulses that suggested awe or fear. We're very good at finding new ways to fight, Cooper replied. It's what happens when you evolve on a world that's constantly trying to kill you. Cooper's communication device beeped. It was Captain Ford. Major, we've broken their first line, but the Ravager is moving into position to target the planet. We need you on board the Nemesis now. We're deploying the strike team. Understood, sir. On my way. Cooper turned to Ron. I have to go, Captain. Ford has a plan to take out their planet killer. Ron's head ridges pulsed with a pattern Cooper had come to recognize as concern. Be careful, Major. The Drax are ruthless. Cooper nodded and signaled to his team. So are humans. Back on the Nemesis, Cooper joined a special strike team, 20 of the best Marines, each in advanced stealth exosuits. Their mission was simple, but nearly impossible: board the Ravager and disable its main weapon from the inside. The Nova Protocol needs time to recharge, Ford explained as the team prepared. And the Ravager's shields are too strong for our conventional weapons. You'll have to get inside and destroy the weapon control systems manually. Cooper checked his equipment one final time. How do we get aboard? They'll be watching for drop pods after our last attack. We have something new, Ford said, leading him to a small hangar bay. Inside was a sleek black craft unlike anything Cooper had seen before. Stealth shuttle. It absorbs sensor scans instead of reflecting them. It should get you close enough to attach to their hull. Cooper nodded. And once we're inside? Their schematics based on the ships we captured suggest the main weapon controls are here. Ford showed him a holographic map. It'll be heavily guarded. We can handle guards, Cooper said confidently. Ford placed a hand on his shoulder. The fate of the Valny depends on this, Major. Good luck. As the battle raged around them, the stealth shuttle slipped through the chaos toward the massive Ravager. The vessel was enormous, a floating fortress of metal and energy weapons. Its main gun was already beginning to glow as it powered up for its first shot at the Valny homeworld. The shuttle attached to a maintenance hatch on the Ravager's underside. Cooper and his team cut through the hull and entered the enemy ship. Inside, they moved quickly through the corridors, avoiding Drax patrols when possible, neutralizing them silently when necessary. "They're bigger than I expected," whispered one of the Marines as they hid from a passing group of Drax soldiers. The aliens stood over 2 meters tall with powerful builds and natural armor. "But they're slow," Cooper replied. "Watch how they move. They're not used to fighting in close quarters." The team reached the central shaft of the ship. According to their intelligence, the weapon control room was 20 levels up. They began to climb, using their exosuits' enhanced strength to move quickly up the maintenance ladders. When they reached the correct level, Cooper paused. "Remember, disable the controls first. We want to stop that weapon from firing, not just kill everyone in the room." His team nodded. They understood the stakes. Cooper counted down with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. They burst into the weapon control room, catching the Drax officers completely by surprise. The aliens reached for weapons, but the humans were too fast. Cooper's team used non-lethal force where possible, but some Drax fought to the death. Within minutes, the control room was secure. Cooper approached the main console, a complex array of systems unlike any human technology. "Can you disable it?" one of his Marines asked. Cooper studied the controls. "No, but I can overload it." He began entering commands, redirecting the weapon's enormous power back into its own systems. "Everyone out! We have 3 minutes before this thing blows itself apart." The team fought their way back to the shuttle, facing heavier resistance now that the Drax knew they were aboard. They reached the shuttle with seconds to spare, detaching from the Ravager just as the ship's main weapon began to glow from within. The explosion was spectacular. The Ravager's primary weapon overloaded, sending cascading failures throughout the massive vessel. Secondary explosions tore through its hull until the entire ship broke apart in a flash of light visible from the planet's surface. Seeing their most powerful weapon destroyed, the remaining Drax vessels began to retreat. The battle wasn't over, but the immediate threat to the Valny homeworld had been eliminated. 1 week later, Admiral Reynolds, Captain Ford, and Major Cooper stood with Elder Ron on a balcony overlooking the Valny capital. Repair work was underway, with humans and Valny working side by side to rebuild. "Your people saved us," Ron said, its head ridges glowing with warm colors. "The Drax have retreated from our system completely. They'll think twice before attacking again," Reynolds replied. "But we'll leave a defense force here just in case. The Nemesis and a few other ships will remain in your system until your own defenses can be rebuilt." "And the rest of your fleet?" Ron asked. "We'll return to Earth. Our mission was to save your people, and we've done that." Reynolds looked out at the city. "But this is just the beginning. Earth will establish formal relations with the Valny. You'll no longer be alone in the galaxy." Ron's head ridges pulsed with bright patterns. "Because of you, news of this victory is spreading through nearby systems. Other species that have suffered under the Drax are beginning to hope again." Cooper smiled. "Perhaps that's our real purpose out here. Not just to fight, but to bring hope." As they spoke, a Valny child approached, looking up at Cooper with curious eyes. The Marine knelt down to the child's level, and after a moment's hesitation, the young Valny reached out to touch his armored hand. In that moment, Cooper understood something important. Humans had evolved on a death world, becoming strong through constant struggle. But that strength now had a new purpose: to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Throughout the stars, the story of Fleet Doom began to spread. The Deathworlders who came not to conquer but to defend. the humans from Earth who answered a call for help from strangers. And everywhere that story was told, oppressed species began to whisper a new hope. Perhaps, if they called for help, Fleet Doom might answer. End. The deep silence of space surrounded the Earth warship Dauntless as it moved through the darkness at the edge of the solar system. Captain Jack Reed sat in his command chair, watching the stars on the main screen. His patrol route was almost done, and soon he could return home. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lena Davis, the ship's communications officer. Her fingers moved quickly over her console as she worked. "It's some kind of signal from far away." Reed stood up and walked to her station. "What kind of signal?" "I'm not sure. It doesn't match anything in our database." Lena's forehead wrinkled as she studied the pattern on her screen. "But it repeats in a way that reminds me of a distress call. It starts slow, then gets faster, and more urgent." Reed looked at the strange waves moving across Lena's screen. After 20 years in space, he had learned to trust his crew's instincts. "Can you tell where it's coming from?" Lena nodded. "Epsilon Eridani system. That's where the Tauri live." The Tauri were a peaceful alien race that had only recently made contact with humans. They were tall, with skin that shimmered like pearls in the light. They had advanced technology but seemed gentle and cautious around humans. "The Tauri have never asked for help before," Reed said, scratching his chin. "Send a message to Earth Command right away. Include all the signal data." "Already done, sir," Lena replied. "They want us to return to Earth immediately." 3 days. Later, Reed stood in a large meeting room at Earth Command headquarters. The room was filled with military leaders and government officials. Admiral Helen Torres, the head of Earth's defense forces, stood at the front of the room. "The signal Captain Reed's ship found is definitely a distress call from the Tauri," Admiral Torres said. She pointed to a glowing map of star systems. "Our experts have studied it carefully. The Tauri are in serious trouble." "What kind of trouble?" asked a man in a gray suit. "We barely know these aliens. This could be a trick to get our ships away from Earth." Admiral Torres shook her head. "The Tauri are not warriors. Their entire culture is built around peace and learning. If they're calling for help, they must be facing something terrible." Reed listened carefully. The Tauri had always been polite but distant in their few meetings with humans. Their representatives seemed almost afraid of humans, calling Earth a death world because of its many dangers: strong gravity, extreme weather, and countless predators. To them, humans were scary creatures born on a planet that tried to kill them every day. "The signal contains some information about what they're facing," continued Torres. "Something is attacking their worlds, something that destroys everything it touches." The room grew quiet as Admiral Torres showed images decoded from the signal. Planets covered in darkness, ships being torn apart, entire cities vanishing. "They're not just asking us for help," Torres said. "They're begging." The gray-suited man frowned. "Why us? There are other alien races closer to them." "Because we're from Earth," Reed said, speaking up for the first time. Everyone turned to look at him. "The Tauri and other aliens think we're dangerous because our planet is harsh, but that's exactly why they need us now. We know how to fight and survive when things get bad." Admiral Torres nodded. "Captain Reed is right. The Tauri have called us because we're Death Worlders. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us at every turn. We survived ice ages, massive predators, diseases, and our own wars. That made us strong in ways other species aren't." She pressed a button, and the map zoomed out to show hundreds of star systems. "They need warriors, and Earth has the best in this part of the galaxy." "So what do we do?" asked another official. Admiral Torres looked at each person in the room. "We send help, not just a ship or two. We send everything we have." 1 week later, Fleet Admiral Thomas Morgan stood on the bridge of the supercarrier Resolute, the largest warship humans had ever built. Around him, officers worked at their stations, preparing the ship for its mission. "Admiral, all ships report." "Ready," said his second-in-command, Commander Anna Park. Morgan nodded and looked at the large screen showing space outside. Hundreds of warships filled the view, Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and support vessels. It was the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled. Over 300 ships with more than 120,000 crew members, all answering the Tory distress call. "Let's hope it's enough," Morgan said quietly. The admiral was a tall man with dark skin and gray hair. He had fought in Earth's last major war and had hoped never to lead ships into battle again. But the Tory signal had changed everything. "Open a channel to all ships," he ordered. Commander Park pressed several buttons. "Channel open, sir." Morgan took a deep breath. "This is Fleet Admiral Morgan to all vessels. Today we begin our journey to the Epsilon Eridani system to help the Tari people. We don't know exactly what we're facing, but we know it's dangerous enough to frighten an entire civilization." He paused, looking at the countless ships waiting for his orders. "For years, many alien races have kept their distance from us. They called Earth a death world and saw humans as too unpredictable and violent. Today, those same qualities may save an entire species from destruction. We are bringing the strength of Earth to those who need it." Morgan straightened his uniform. "No matter what we find at Epsilon Eridani, we will face it with courage and determination. That's what Deathworlders do. We survive, and we help others survive too." He nodded to Commander Park. "Fleet command out." Morgan turned to his navigation. "Officer, set course for Epsilon Eridani. Maximum speed." "Course set, Admiral," the officer replied. "Then let's go save some aliens," Morgan said. "All ships engage." Across the vast formation, hundreds of engines flared to life. The massive fleet moved as one, leaving Earth behind and heading into the unknown darkness of deep space. As the Resolute led the fleet forward, Morgan stared at the stars ahead. Whatever had frightened the peaceful Tari enough to call Earth for help was waiting out there. Soon, it would learn why humans were both feared and respected throughout the galaxy. Soon, it would learn what it meant to face creatures born on a death world. 342 ships moved through the darkness of space, engines glowing blue against the black. The human fleet was on day 5 of its journey to help the Tari aliens, and everyone was busy preparing for whatever lay ahead. On the scout ship Kestrel, Lieutenant Ben Foster checked his flight systems again. The small, fast ship could zoom ahead of the main fleet to gather information. Foster had been a pilot for 6 years, but he had never seen real combat. "Nervous?" asked another pilot as they walked through the ship's narrow hallway. Foster nodded. "A little. We're heading to fight something that scared an entire alien civilization into calling us for help." "That can't be good." "True," his friend said. "But that's why they called Earth specifically. We know how to handle scary things." In another part of the fleet, Commander Olivia Wright led a briefing for fighter pilots. She pointed to images on a large screen showing different attack formations. "We don't know what we're facing yet," she told the room full of pilots. "So we need to be ready for anything. Run these drills until you can do them in your sleep." A young pilot raised her hand. "Commander, what if this is all a big mistake? What if the Tari just had some kind of accident and we're bringing an entire war fleet for nothing?" Wright considered the question. "Then we help them with their accident and go home. But if they're facing something bad enough to make them break their usual quiet ways and call for help?" She looked around the room. "Well, then they'll be glad we brought everything we have." On the main bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Morgan met with the ship's science team. They had been working day and night to understand more of the Tauri distress signal. "We've made a breakthrough," said Dr. Marcus Webb, the lead scientist. He was a thin man with tired eyes, who hadn't slept much since the journey began. "The signal contains data packages, information the Tari wanted to share with whoever answered their call." "What kind of information?" Morgan asked. Dr. Webb's face grew serious. "Information about what they're fighting. They call it the Void Eater. It's not just one creature. It's many creatures working together as one mind." He touched a screen, and a strange black shape appeared. It looked like a mix between a cloud and an animal, with parts that reached out like tentacles. "The Void Eater consumes everything it touches. Living things, technology, even whole planets eventually. But here's the worst part," Webb continued. "It learns from what it eats. If it consumes a ship, it gains the knowledge of how that ship works. If it consumes a living thing, it learns how that creature thinks and functions. Morgan stared at the image. So it gets stronger with every victory. Exactly. According to the Tauri data, it's already destroyed 3 other alien civilizations before reaching them. The Admiral stood in silence for a moment, thinking about what this meant. How do the Tauri suggest we fight it? That's just it. They don't have many suggestions. Their weapons slowed it down but couldn't stop it. That's why they called Earth. Webb looked at the Admiral. They're hoping we have weapons or ideas they haven't thought of. Morgan nodded slowly. Keep studying that data. I want to know everything about this Void Eater before we reach Epsilon Eridani. Yes, sir, Webb replied. During the second week of travel, the fleet held daily combat drills. Ships practiced fighting together in different formations. Weapons. Crews tested their systems. Repair teams practiced fixing damage quickly. Again! Commander Wright shouted as her fighter squadron completed another practice run. Your turns are too wide. The enemy could get between you. The fighters circled around and tried the maneuver again, tighter this time. Better, Wright said. One more time. In his quarters, Admiral Morgan reviewed battle plans with his top officers. We need to be flexible, he told them. This enemy adapts quickly, so we can't rely on any single attack strategy. Commander Park pointed to the fleet map. We could split into 3 groups, hit them from different directions with different weapons. Good thinking, Morgan agreed. Let's work out the details. On day 18, as the fleet neared the Epsilon Eridani system, the communications officer on the Resolute called Admiral Morgan to the bridge. Sir, we're picking up signals ahead, he said. Not from the Tauri homeworld, but from the outer edge of their system. What kind of signals? Morgan asked, looking at the main screen. Ship communications, sir. Lots of them. But they're not all Tauri signals. I'm detecting at least 6 or 7 different communication patterns. Morgan leaned forward in his chair. Show me. The screen changed to show a distant area of space near a small moon. There dozens of ships were gathered, vessels of different shapes and sizes, clearly not all from the same alien race. They're not running away, Commander Park noted. They're holding position. It's almost like, Morgan started. Like they're waiting for someone, Park finished. As the human fleet moved closer, they could see the alien ships better. Some were damaged with holes in their hulls or broken parts. Others looked perfectly fine, but were smaller than expected for warships. Sir, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from what appears to be the largest Tauri vessel. Put it through, Morgan ordered. The screen changed to show a Tauri alien. It was tall and thin with silvery skin that seemed to glow slightly. Its large eyes blinked slowly as it looked at the humans. Greetings, Earth Fleet, the Tauri said in a soft voice. I am Ambassador Kirill. On behalf of all the peoples gathered here, I thank you for answering our call. Morgan stepped forward. This is Admiral Morgan of Earth Command. We came to help. Though I must say I'm surprised to see ships from other species here. Kirill's expression changed slightly. We sent our distress call to many civilizations, Admiral. Only Earth responded with a war fleet. The others sent small groups of ships or single representatives. The alien gestured to the space behind him where other aliens could be seen. These are the survivors who escaped the Void Eater's attacks, on their worlds. Morgan looked at the screen closely. He could see different types of aliens, some with hard shells like insects, others that seemed to be made of crystal, and more he couldn't even describe. We have much to discuss, Kirill continued. Would you join us on my ship? We have gathered all the information we have about the enemy. I'll come with a small team, Morgan agreed. We have information to share as well. As the communication ended, Commander Park turned to Morgan. Sir, do you think these other aliens will fight alongside us? Morgan looked out at the gathered ships. Some were clearly not made for battle, but others had weapon systems visible on their hulls. I don't know, he said honestly, but we came here to save the Tauri, and that's what we're going to do, with or without help. The massive human fleet slowed as it approached the waiting alien ships. For the first time in history, Humans were about to join forces with multiple alien races against a common enemy. Whether this unusual alliance would be enough to stop the Void Eater remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. The full might of Earth had arrived, and the battle for survival was about to begin. Admiral Morgan's shuttle approached the large Tauri ship. Through the window he could see its smooth silver hull glowing softly against the blackness of space. Unlike human vessels with their sharp angles and visible weapons, the Tauri ship looked almost peaceful, with flowing lines and few obvious defenses. "They really aren't built for war," commented Commander Park, who sat beside him. Morgan nodded. "Makes you wonder what kind of enemy could push such a peaceful species to call strangers for help." The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. When the outer doors opened, Morgan and his team of 5 officers stepped into the Tauri ship. The air smelled faintly sweet, and the lighting was softer than on human vessels. Ambassador Kirill waited for them. Up close, the Tauri was even more striking. Nearly 7 feet tall with skin that shifted color slightly as it moved, like oil on water. Its 4-fingered hands were long and delicate. "Welcome aboard, Admiral," Kirill said with a small bow. "Please follow me, the others are waiting." They walked through curved hallways to a large round room. Inside, representatives from 7 different alien species sat in a circle. Morgan had seen images of some of these aliens before, but others were completely new to him. "Allow me to introduce our allies," Kirill said, "the Vesh." He pointed to a group of aliens that looked somewhat like large insects with hard outer shells and multiple limbs. The Melosians. These were blue-skinned aliens wearing special suits filled with liquid. Morgan remembered that they came from an ocean world and needed water to survive. The Tholians. These strange beings seemed to be made of crystal that glowed from within. They had no faces that Morgan could see, just geometric shapes that shifted slowly. Kirill introduced the other species as well. The furry Raxi, the plant-like Verdan, and the gaseous Nori, who floated in special containment suits. Each group nodded or made some gesture of greeting as they were introduced. "And now, the humans," Kirill said, turning to Morgan's group. "The Deathworlders who answered our call with the largest fleet our systems have ever seen." All the aliens turned to look at the humans with what Morgan guessed was a mixture of hope and concern. "We came to help," Morgan said simply. "Now tell us what we're up against." A Vesh representative stepped forward. Its hard outer shell bore marks that looked like battle damage. "Our colony was the first to fall," the Vesh said in a clicking voice that was translated through a device on its chest. "We are warriors and we fought well. But the Void Eater, it does not fight like normal enemies." The Vesh touched a control panel and a hologram appeared in the center of the room, showing a planet with a strange black mass spreading across its surface. It starts small, just a few spores that land on a world. They grow and consume. Plants, animals, buildings, technology, all become part of it. And everything it consumes, it learns from. The hologram changed to show Vesh ships firing weapons at the black mass. Where the weapons hit, the mass pulled back briefly, then surged forward again. We destroyed parts of it, but it adapted to our weapons. By the 3rd day, our attacks did nothing. By the 5th day, it had consumed half our colony. We abandoned the planet on the 6th day. Morgan watched carefully. "How does it spread between planets?" A Melosian scientist answered, its voice bubbling through the water in its suit. "It creates spore ships, vessels made from consumed matter. These ships travel to new worlds and start the cycle again. They are not fast, but they are many. We tracked your approach," added a Tholian, its crystal body glinting in the light. "Your vessels contain weapons and defenses we have not seen before. Perhaps your adaptations will succeed where ours failed." Morgan turned to Dr. Webb. "What do you think?" The scientist had been studying the hologram intently. "The Void Eater seems to adapt to specific threats. If it faces the same attack enough times, it learns to counter it. But what if we keep changing our approach? Never use the same weapon or tactic twice?" "That might work," the Melosian agreed. "But coordination would be difficult across so many different ships and species." Morgan looked around the room at the gathered aliens. "Then we create a unified command structure, share technology, Form joint crews. The aliens looked at each other in surprise. Joint crews? Araxi asked, its furry face showing confusion. You would allow aliens on your warships? If it helps? Us win, yes, Morgan said firmly. We need your knowledge of the enemy, and you need our firepower and tactical experience. Together, we're stronger than apart. There was a moment of silence as the aliens considered this. Then Kirill spoke. The Admiral is right. We must work as one if we hope to defeat the Void Eater. One by one, the representatives nodded or signaled their agreement. The Vesh commander approached Morgan and extended a clawed hand in what it had clearly learned was a human greeting gesture. We will fight together, Admiral of Earth. Your ways are strange to us, but so is defeat to you, I think. Morgan shook the offered claw carefully. We're not planning to learn about defeat today. Over the next 3 days, the strange alliance prepared for battle. Human officers traveled to alien ships to help improve their defenses, while alien representatives came aboard human vessels to share their knowledge of the Void Eater. On the scout ship Kestrel, Lieutenant Foster found himself teaching a group of Raxi pilots how to fly in tighter formations. Your ships are faster than ours, a Raxi pilot told him, but you fly so close together, it seems dangerous. It is dangerous, Foster admitted, but it makes us harder to hit and lets us concentrate our firepower. Sometimes you have to be a little crazy to win a fight. The Raxi looked at each other nervously but continued the training. Meanwhile, Commander Wright worked with Vesh strategists on attack patterns. The insect-like aliens had centuries of combat experience, but they had never faced an enemy like the Void Eater before. Your species evolved on a world with many dangers, a Vesh commander noted as they studied battle plans. Our homeworld had few predators and stable climate. Perhaps that is why we failed where you might succeed. Wright looked up from the plans. Earth shaped us through millions of years of survival. Fire, floods, ice ages, predators, disease. We faced it all and lived. Now we use that heritage to help others. A curious evolution, the Vesh replied, to become dangerous in order to become protectors. On the eve of battle, Admiral Morgan addressed the combined fleet. His message was transmitted to every ship, translated into each species' language. Tomorrow we enter the first Void Eater-controlled system. We fight not just for the Tauri but for all life that wishes to exist free from this threat. Each of our species brings unique strengths to this battle. Vesh precision, Melosian adaptation, Tholian resilience, human determination, and more. Morgan paused, looking at the alien representatives who stood with him on the Resolute's bridge. The enemy we face consumes and adapts, but so do we. Humanity has faced extinction many times throughout our history. Each time we adapted and survived. Tomorrow, we will show the Void Eater what happens when it threatens a galaxy protected by Deathworlders. Across the fleet, humans and aliens alike prepared their ships and weapons. No one knew what awaited them in the Void Eater's territory, but for the first time, the various species of the galaxy were truly united. As the fleet prepared to jump to the target system, Ambassador Kirill approached Morgan one last time. Your people are not what we expected, Admiral, the Tauri admitted. We feared Earth for so long because of its harshness. We never considered that such difficulty would create beings capable of such dedication to protecting others. Morgan looked out at the stars. That's the thing about growing up on a dangerous world, Ambassador. You learn quickly that the only way to survive is to stand together against the threats. The signal to jump flashed across all ships. The battle for survival was about to begin. The combined fleet appeared at the edge of the star system that had once been a thriving Tauri colony. Almost immediately, everyone fell silent as they saw what waited for them. The main planet, once covered in forests and oceans according to Tauri records, was now wrapped in a black, pulsing mass. It looked like the planet was wearing a dark, living blanket that shifted and moved across its surface. In orbit around the world were dozens of strange ships, twisted things that looked part machine, part creature. Those were our vessels, once, whispered a Tholian officer on the Resolute's bridge. And Vesh cruisers and Melosian science ships, all consumed and recreated. Admiral Morgan studied the enemy fleet through narrowed eyes. The Void Eater ships moved with strange coordination, flowing like schools of fish rather than normal spacecraft. "All vessels maintain formation," Morgan ordered over the fleet-wide channel. "Remember your training and trust your allies. Weapon systems online, but hold fire until my command." The human fleet spread into the attack formation they had practiced, with the alien vessels integrating into their positions. Heavy warships formed a central core with faster ships on the wings. The Resolute and other carriers stayed back, protected by rings of destroyers. For several minutes, nothing happened. The Allied fleet moved slowly forward, while the Void ships maintained their positions around the infected planet. "Why aren't they attacking?" Commander Park asked quietly. Dr. Webb, who was monitoring sensor data, looked up with concern. "They're studying us, learning." Suddenly, the Void ships began to move. They didn't charge forward in a disorganized rush as expected. Instead, they formed complex patterns, targeting the largest Allied vessels first. "They're using tactics," Morgan realized. "Coordinated attack patterns." "It's learned from the ships and crews it consumed," Webb confirmed. Morgan's voice was steady as he gave the order. "All vessels, begin attack pattern Alpha. Rotating weapons only. Remember, don't use the same weapon twice on the same target." The battle exploded into action. Human dreadnoughts fired their main guns, sending bright beams of energy slicing through space. Vesh ships launched precision strikes at the enemy's weak points. Malosian vessels deployed special fields that disrupted the biological parts of the Void ships. The largest human dreadnought, the Thermopylae, took the first serious hit, a biological projectile that attached to its hull and began eating through the outer armor. "Engineering reports the substance is trying to connect with our ship systems," the Thermopylae's captain reported. "Activating emergency protocols." The humans had prepared for this. Special isolation systems prevented the Void Eater from accessing critical ship functions, while targeted laser arrays burned away the biological intrusion. "It's adapting quickly," warned Dr. Webb over the tactical channel. "Don't use the same defense or attack twice if possible." Throughout the battle, the Allied fleet demonstrated the strength of their combination. Human overwhelming firepower worked alongside Vesh precision targeting. Malosian disruptor technology proved effective against the biological parts of the enemy, while Tholian crystal ships created defensive fields that the Void couldn't penetrate. But for every victory, there were losses. The cruiser Intrepid was surrounded when multiple Void ships attached to its engines. Rather than let his vessel be consumed, Captain Ryan Torres ordered his crew to escape pods and set the ship's core to overload. The explosion destroyed the Intrepid and 3 enemy vessels in a blinding flash. Lieutenant Foster's scout squadron darted between larger battles, identifying weaknesses and coordinating attacks. During one run, his Kestrel was damaged and forced to make an emergency landing on a small moon. There, face to face with a ground form of the Void Eater that had begun to spread across the moon's surface, he witnessed its adaptive capabilities firsthand. "It's learning from us in real time," he reported after being rescued by a Raxi ship. "I saw it trying to take human form, like it's trying to understand what we are." The battle for the first system lasted 17 hours of non-stop fighting. The combined fleet destroyed many Void ships, but at great cost. 28 vessels lost and dozens more damaged. "We can't win by simply destroying them one by one," Morgan told his officers during a brief pause in the fighting. "We need to find its center, the core that controls everything." Dr. Webb and scientists from several alien species had been analyzing battle data. "There's a pattern to how it adapts," Webb explained, pointing to readings on his screen. "The Void Eater only improves what it needs to. It doesn't waste energy on adaptations it doesn't immediately require." Commander Wright saw the opportunity immediately. "Then we show it one threat while preparing another. Make it adapt in the wrong direction." Morgan nodded. "Exactly. We'll split into 3 task forces." He turned to the large tactical display, showing the nearby star systems. "According to the Tauri data, the first world the Void Eater consumed was here." He pointed to a planet in a neighboring system. "That might be where its central intelligence is located." The plan formed quickly. Two groups would attack the void directly, using carefully limited tactics to force it to develop specific defenses. The third group, led by the Resolute, would circle around to strike at what they believed was the void's neural center, the first world it had consumed. As the fleet regrouped and prepared for the new strategy, Admiral Morgan addressed them, one last time. Throughout Earth's history, we've faced extinction many times: ice ages, volcanoes, meteors, plagues. Each time we not only survived but emerged stronger. The Void Eater thinks it's the ultimate predator, but it's never encountered Deathworlders before. He looked around at the humans and aliens working side by side on the Resolute's bridge. Our ancestors survived Earth's challenges for millions of years. They didn't give up when predators hunted them, when ice covered their homes, when disease swept through their populations. They adapted, they fought back, and they lived. Now we bring that same unbreakable will to this fight. The Void Eater consumes and adapts, but so do we, and we've been doing it a lot longer. The fleet separated into its three task forces. The two diversionary groups moved to engage the Void forces directly, while the Resolute and its strike group began their stealthy approach toward the suspected neural center. On the bridge of his ship, Morgan watched the tactical display as the battle resumed. Beside him, Ambassador Kirill observed with wide eyes. "I never understood before," the Tari said quietly, "why a species would evolve to be so combat-ready. Now I see that perhaps the universe needs creatures like humans, beings forged in difficult conditions, ready to face the darkest threats." Morgan didn't reply immediately. He was watching the battle unfold, noting how the Void ships were responding exactly as predicted, adapting to counter the specific attacks from the diversionary forces. "All ships," he finally ordered, "prepare for the final assault. It's time to show this thing what Deathworlders are truly capable of." The Resolute and its strike group moved silently through the outer reaches of the system where the Void Eater had claimed its first victim. Admiral Morgan had ordered minimal power to engines and systems to avoid detection. They used the local star's radiation to hide their approach from the enemy's sensors. "Status report," Morgan said quietly on the bridge. "Diversionary forces are fully engaged, sir," Commander Park reported. "The Void Fleet is responding exactly as we predicted, adapting to counter their specific attacks. And our approach? So far undetected. We'll reach attack position in 17 minutes. Morgan nodded and turned to Dr. Webb. "What should we expect to find?" The scientist looked up from his data screens. "Based on Tauri information and our own analysis, the first consumed world should contain what we might call a neural center, a planetary-scale brain that coordinates all Void Eater activities. And if we destroy it? In theory, the entire Void organism should lose coordination. Individual parts might survive, but they would no longer function as a unified threat." Morgan looked at the view screen where a dark planet was slowly growing, larger. "Then let's make sure we do more than damage it. I want that thing completely eliminated." As they approached closer, the ship's sensors began to show clearer images of the target world. What they found was beyond nightmare. The entire planet was covered in black pulsating material. Massive tendrils extended from the surface into space, connecting to distant points throughout the star system. "Those connections," Webb said, in amazement. "They must be how it coordinates across light years. It's created its own biological communication network." Morgan studied the image for a moment before making his decision. "All vessels, target those connections. Prepare planet cracker warheads for the surface node." The strike was swift and overwhelming. Human warships launched devastating attacks at the tendrils while their alien allies provided specialized countermeasures against the Void's defenses. For every adaptation the enemy developed, the combined fleet had another weapon ready. "The tendrils are severing," reported a weapons officer. "We're getting through." On the main view screen, they could see the massive black connections being cut by concentrated fire from the fleet. Each time a tendril was destroyed, it writhed like a wounded animal before going still. Suddenly, dozens of Void ships appeared from the far side of the planet, moving to protect the neural center. "They know what we're doing," Commander Park said. "They're diverting forces from the diversionary attack." Too late, Morgan replied. Launch the Special Forces teams. From the belly of several human destroyers, small, fast shuttles shot toward the planet's surface. Inside them, teams led by Commander Wright prepared for landing. They carried specially designed weapons developed by human and alien scientists, biological agents engineered from the Void Eater's own genetic material, designed to attack it from within. Think of it as a cancer made just for the Void, Dr. Yu. Webb had explained during the briefing. It will turn the creature's absorption ability against itself. The shuttles broke through the minimal remaining defenses and landed on the dark surface of the planet. As the teams deployed, they reported back what they saw. It's like walking on a giant living creature, Wright's voice came through the comm system. The ground pulses and moves. There are structures here, twisted versions of buildings and ships it must have consumed. Stay focused on the mission, Morgan reminded them. Plant the devices and get out. The Special Forces teams moved, quickly, placing the biological weapons at key points identified by the scientists. All around them, the Void Eater seemed to sense the danger. The ground shook more violently and strange shapes rose up to attack the human teams. It's fighting back, Wright reported as her team finished setting their last device. And sir, it's taking human form. Some of the attackers look like twisted versions of people. Morgan frowned. It's trying to understand us by becoming us. Get your teams out of there, Commander. As the shuttles lifted off, the biological weapons began to activate. From orbit, the fleet could see patches of the black surface turning gray, then white as the engineered cancer spread through the Void Eater's body. At the same time, the fleet launched their heaviest attack yet. Planet Cracker missiles designed to break a world apart from the inside. Normally used for mining operations, on uninhabited planets they were now turned to a more deadly purpose. The Void Eater fought desperately, sacrificing ships and mass to protect its core. For the first time, its movements showed something new: fear. It recognizes what we are now, Lieutenant Foster observed from his repaired Kestrel as he watched the battle. It finally understands it's not the apex predator here. When the neural center was finally destroyed, the effect cascaded throughout nearby systems. The planet broke apart in a spectacular series of explosions, sending fragments of the Void Eater's core into space where they quickly died without the main body. Throughout the nearby systems, Void ships stopped coordinating. Some became erratic, flying in random patterns. Others simply went dormant, drifting in space. The consumption process on partially assimilated worlds halted. The cost had been enormous. Over 100 Allied ships lost, thousands of lives sacrificed. But the greater Void Eater threat had been neutralized. 2 weeks later, as recovery operations continued, Ambassador Kirill approached Admiral Morgan on the Resolute's observation deck. The Admiral was looking out at the stars, thinking about all that had happened. The galactic community has long viewed Earth as dangerous, Kirill said, joining him at the viewport. Your planet's extreme conditions produced beings with concerning adaptations: aggression, persistence, creativity, and warfare. Morgan said nothing, continuing to look at the stars. What we feared most about humans became our salvation, Kirill continued. The Council of Species will meet soon to discuss the future. There is talk of offering Earth a permanent leadership role in galactic defense. Morgan turned to face the ambassador. Death worlds like Earth don't just create predators, Ambassador. They create protectors. Life is precious to us precisely because it's fragile. We fight so hard because we know how easily it can all be lost. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Humanity's reputation transformed from dangerous deathworlders to necessary guardians. Joint fleet operations continued, with human officers training aliens in combat tactics while learning from their unique perspectives and technologies. Scientists studied the remnants of the Void Eater, ensuring it could never return, but also learning from its adaptability. Some of its beneficial aspects were carefully integrated into new medical and engineering applications. Lieutenant Foster, now promoted to captain with his own ship, often spoke to new cadets about the lessons of the Void Eater War. For millions of years, Earth tried to kill us, he would tell them. Floods, fires, ice ages, predators, disease. We survived because we refused to die. Now the galaxy needs that same stubborn refusal on a cosmic scale. The greatest change, however, was in how other species viewed humans. Where once they had kept their distance from Earth, now many sought closer ties. Exchange programs brought alien students to Earth universities while human experts helped rebuild worlds damaged by the Void Eater. Commander Wright, leading one such rebuilding effort on a former Vesh colony, summed it up well when speaking to a group of alien children. The harshness that forged humanity had a purpose after all. It prepared us to stand between life and extinction when it mattered most. The SOS that had reached Earth marked the beginning of a new era, one where humanity's greatest strength was finally understood. They weren't feared for being Deathworlders. They were valued for it. The difficult evolution that had made humans tough, resourceful, and determined had prepared them for exactly this role, standing between life and extinction, ready to send an entire fleet when a single cry for help echoed across the stars.